internet! Hello, you absolute lovelies! Let's talk all about Fantastic Four First Steps with full spoilers. This review is going to contain lots of spoilers for the duration of the film. We're talking post-credit scenes, we're talking Easter eggs, we're talking villains, we're talking comic references, we're talking comic creators. Everything in this video, you should have seen the movie first. I know a lot of people like to get spoilers from their reviews, but this is one that should truly be experienced. It is exceptional. It is fantastic. If you're new to this page, I do lots and lots of comic book content. I read about 50 to 70 comics a week, and then I review them right here. I give you my favorite 9 comics every week, hoping to get people into comic book stores, try to make the most approachable comics that are out week to week, and we're going to do a 50 comic giveaway right here on this page when we hit 50K. So please hit that subscription bell. We're at like 49 and change. We're so close. If you're subscribed, you're going to be eligible to win 50 comics from me mailed directly to you. Also, let's have a conversation about this movie in the comments. I love talking comic book movies. Please leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of First Steps. Press like while you're pressing buttons. Let's talk the movie. Okay, spoilers for First Steps. This is going to be broken up into 3 parts. Part 1 is going to be my overall thoughts on the film, my overall journey, my feelings, and a lot of really interesting comparisons to Superman, which only came out 2 weeks ago. There's a lot there. That's why this video is called Fantastic Four. It's Superman. It's a praise to both of these films. Going to be diving into that. Second act is going to be breaking down the cast, the director, more the behind the scenes and the highs and lows of those choices. And then finally, the last act, some of the cons. This movie isn't perfect. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Going to be diving into the why of that at the end of the film. But let's start with the pros and some of the crazy parallels and just circumstance of timing with this and Superman. Now, this is a movie that trusts its audience, just as that one did, but it's also a movie that is set in another universe, just as that one is. But in this case, that allows for the film to be truly comic booky in a way that I don't think Marvel has ever had before. This is a actual Marvel comic film. This is probably the most comic booky thing Marvel has ever made, and that's because they put it in Universe 828. Now, that is a universe invented to honor Jack Kirby. Kirby is the king of comics, but he's also so intrinsically tied to a lot of the tone and feel of this film. Kirby gave us Fantastic Four, gave us this universe. It's only fitting that the universe gives back to him and names the universe 828 after his birthday on August 28th, 828. And I love that putting that in the universe allowed you to have the suspension of disbelief to let this world breathe and happen. Now, the movie in itself is set in this universe that is full of Americana, that feels very Norman Rockwell, that feels very Alex Ross. This feels like The Marvels, an incredible comic run by Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross, where you're living amongst people in a world of these incredible creatures above you. It's from the perspective of a photographer, but you're on the ground in this 60s feel. I think setting this there was one of the most inspired choices Marvel could make, because you got rid of all worry of continuity. You got rid of, like, why weren't they there for Thanos? You get rid of all of those things, and you let this origin actually be an origin. That's another Superman parallel. I love that this film not only has this incredible opening of time 4 years later. You don't have to watch the origin again. You don't have to see the cosmic rays again. We know that story. And just as Superman opened with 3 years, the 3 months, the 3 days, this film jumps through time and just lets you, trust you. And I bring up all of these parallels, and I really want to make it clear. I love both of these films. I just love that within 2 weeks, we get the 2 most comic booky films I think I've ever seen. I'd say the next most accurate to comics is going to be Sin City, but that's a translation versus an adaptation. This is adapting a broad sense of story, a myriad of different comic books, and making its own original thing. Sin City is like, let's film the comic book. Watchmen, similarly, until the 3rd act was, let's film the comic book. So those are a little different. I would consider Superman and Fantastic Four the 2 most comic booky new narratives we've ever had. These movies are so free because they chose to let them be in another universe, a universe that already has heroes, a universe that isn't worried about origins, a movie that isn't worried about time, and it's able to be vibrant and bright and full of Americana. But I love that they're both kind of different tones. Superman is very much a golden age type of Americana tone, and it actually, oddly, is much less in America than this film, which is very much the Americana 60s tone and kind of lives within that. Yes, there are absolutely global stakes, but we don't see a lot of the rest of the globe. So I thought it was really interesting, these 2 movies coming out 2 weeks apart that started filming over a year different. Like, Superman was wrapped as Fantastic Four was going into production, and the movies themselves have so many parallels. Not only these Earth-based things, not only just the tone and one golden age, one silver age, but the movies themselves have a lot of similar ideas about parenting. One of them takes place from the perspective of the son, and that being Superman and all the parent things you go through there, Fantastic Four taking place from the perspective of the parents and having a child, having a son, and both are about what it means to be family, what it means to make choices, what it means to, in one case, make a choice of nature versus nurture, and the other choice have the trolley problem in a very large and insane way. So I love that these movies are two of my favorite comic book movies of the last decade. I love that they feel like they're both starting a new era in comic book movies, but I love that they also both get the intrinsic value of what comic books can do. They can teach you to be a better person. They can give you morals and ethics. They can help shape who you are as an identity, and they can bring you closer to the people around you. That's what comics have always done for me. I was raised by comics. Now, all of those parallels notwithstanding, let's keep talking broad strokes in the movie. I don't take notes. I have nothing in front of me. This is all off the dome, so I might think of more Superman things later in the video, and I apologize if that was an annoying way to review the film, but I'm praising both of these films and just pointing out how crazy it is. We have these parallels, and I think it's an absolutely wonderful thing. But let's get into part 2, which is going to be breaking down the pros and cons of the cast and the director and some of those choices, because that's a good way to kind of look at the overall structure of the film. Now, some of the benefits of this film are the madcap pacing. I think it feels like you're jumping right into a comic book. Again, like Superman, you're getting into like a volume 2. It trusts you. It lets you run full tilt. But it's also got a cast of characters that let you live in an already established universe. We mention the Wizard. We mention the character that John Malkovich is supposed to play, Red Guardian. No, I forget his name. That's going to drive me crazy the rest of this video. But we get all of these villains mentioned, and then at the end, one of our post-credit scenes is seeing all of them in cartoon, and we actually get Malkovich's voice without getting him in earlier in the film, but we see the Wizard, we see these characters, so we've already got a rogues gallery established when we meet Galactus and Silver Surfer. We've already got this universe already in play, and I love that it felt like a comic book where you're picking up a volume 2. I love that it felt like something that is already going on in someone's imagination that you get to share in and just pick up this lesson from and dive into. I think that absolutely worked. So talking about the writing and directing first, then into the cast. Writing-wise, I really felt the DNA of Fantastic Four Life Story from Chip Zdarsky. I felt a lot of DNA of obviously Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's original run, but I also felt a bit of Mark Waid and Mark Waid and Mike Ringo's run, which had a lot of the fantastical swashbuckling adventure elements, and then a little bit of the Hickman headiness and intellectualism and those things, and that is some of the pros and cons of the cast when I get to it, but I can tell the writers read a lot of my favorite stuff. A little bit of Ryan North. Ryan North's only been writing for about 3 years, and I think this movie was probably being written as those first books were, and there's a little bit of that using science as a way to teach you each issue. Each issue of Ryan North's run feels very contained, but then there's also the occasional like 4 and 5 act structures that grow out of that, but there's like a science lesson in each issue that I really love, and I felt a lot of that in what they were talking about, the levers. Like that felt very much like a Ryan North issue where the lever is something that's used as a metaphor and a tool, but you've got to know that message. And that also felt very much like a Matt Shakman thing who gave us the ship of Theseus metaphor in WandaVision. I love the idea of anchoring to a bit of real world science and a bit of real world problem solving in order to show the intelligence of the characters, but also to give us something that grounds their world into our world, that gives us a connection. I really enjoyed that. I also love that Johnny Storm used the idea of Rosetta Stone, and he was able to manipulate using intelligence and science in a way that felt very Fantastic Four, and that felt very much like the Ryan North run. So the imagery of Lee Kirby obviously present, and the overall tone of Alex Ross and Kurt Busiek is absolutely there. Some of the Hickman headiness, some of the swashbuckling adventure of Mike Ringo and Byrne, as well as the Mark Waid run, and then a little bit of that science as a connecting tool of Ryan North, I absolutely felt. So that was my benefit of the writing. The only writing issues I had were a lot of the character moments felt like they would have been better served if the actors had a little bit different of an arc in the beginning. And I'm going to talk more about that when I break down each of the actors. But I feel like the third act payoff would have been bigger if there was a different starting point for this journey of the Fantastic Four. We'll talk about that in a second. It's my only real flaw in the writing. I thought the writing of Galactus was excellent. I loved that he was an entity. He was something just existing and hungering. I loved Silver Surfer as a choice writing-wise. Making her the female Silver Surfer made Johnny Storm much more of the Johnny Storm from the comics, and it made a lot of the choices a lot more interesting. So I love the writing choice of Shala Ball versus Norrin Radd. Thought that was excellent. I love the writing of When Pedro got to break between science and fatherhood and battling those things, I love the matriarchy elements of how maternal and strong the leadership from Sue Storm was. I thought Ben Grimm very much lived a lot of this man, this monster in the writing. I really got into that. Directing wise, I think this is the most beautiful Marvel film for the visual aesthetic and for the production design, but I do think some of the CGI fought against some of those visuals. I think the directing, 100% A+. I love the directing in this film, whether it was the sense of scope and wonder, the sense of scale with Galactus, the sense of danger, the sense of urgency, the sense of actually wondering, like, I know they have to make it. They have to survive. They showed Vanessa Kirby's name on the back of a chair, but how? And I know Franklin Richards, but there were moments of pure actual, like, I'm in this movie so much, I'm not thinking of the comic books, I'm thinking of the movie, I'm not thinking about Franklin Richards, I'm actually worried, and like, the tension is real. So the directing there is incredible. Matt Shakman, clearly a student of the comic books, clearly a love letter to so many. I mean, they literally gave a love letter at the end to Jack Kirby and set the universe in that. Like, Matt Shakman knows ball. This man is an appreciator of the game. He is invested. He is in this world, and you feel that. The directing, I think, is some of the best in the MCU, hard stop, because it has something to say. This movie actually says something. It says, not just in dialogue, but in visual and in journey and in tone, that your child isn't just the sum of its parts. It isn't just another you. It is greater than you. It is a combination. It is a growing. It's an evolution of you. It's 3005. It's money trees. Like this child is the better. It is the best of you and even more. And I love that the film feels like that. And I love that there's tones of Nolan in the space stuff. And I love that there's tones of Alex Ross and the Earthbound stuff. I love how big this film feels because of the directing. I love how practical it got to be as much as possible. I love that Galactus felt tangible, but still very much like Galactus and Kirby. All of that, excellent. So directing, A+, writing, solid B+, A-. Let's talk about the acting. Let's talk about the actors. I want to start with the first family. Let's start with Vanessa Kirby. Vanessa Kirby, for me, absolutely stole the show. I love Vanessa Kirby in this. I thought her and Eben as, Sue and Ben Grimm were a lock as soon as they were announced. I was like, that is the perfect casting. She is so good at being the mother to Franklin here. She is so good at being someone that I buy, going into labor in space and being strong and committed, but still feeling the emotions. You felt for her. You felt with her. You felt her intelligence. You felt the rage of her having to navigate loving the smartest man on the planet and the way he would think and process. And I love some of those choices for Pedro in a second. We'll talk about him. But I love that Vanessa Kirby always felt in love, but always felt like she was actually making her own decisions, actually felt capable. I love the use of her invisibility. I love the rawness in her fights. I love the care and compassion. Vanessa Kirby stole it for me. I love Vanessa Kirby in this. Let's talk about Pedro. Pedro Pascal, he is a Reed Richards that I think works for this film, but I still have the same issues, unfortunately, as I did leading up to the film with Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, in that he seems so cool. I feel like I want to have a beer with the guy. He seems so welcoming and warm and endearing, and that to me isn't Reed. Reed is absent-minded professor. Reed is someone Sue has to apologize for. Reed is a little more ADHD and kinetic and has a lot of things going on. I felt his focus and I felt his warmth, and I don't feel a lot of that from Reed when I read him. And there was a bit of the Joel morose sadness in Reed that I don't think of as Reed. That said, I do like that this is what this movie needed. This is the Reed for this movie. So I could see that evolving. He's a great actor. He's one of the better actors working. He's in everything for a reason. He is an exceptional actor. I could see some of that being, depending on the movie, how you play those levels of Reed, and I could see in a future film seeing more of the maker seeds planted, which we absolutely saw him here. Him like doing the math of like rationale, him making the cold calculated choice, the ethical choice. All of those moments were very like, oh, I could see it going there, but I still feel a little too warm towards Reed Richards, and I don't know if that works for me entirely, but I liked his performance as this Reed, and I was impressed with how the physicality worked. The stretching and stuff looked straight up Alex Ross, and I bought it. The plausibleness of the powers, the use of the powers, the team dynamic, all that worked great with Pedro. Over to Eben Moss-Backrack. This dude is Ben Grimm to me. I love his voice. I love his Yancey Street sensibilities. I love he's a guy about town. I love that he's often wandering the streets. I felt this monster. The reflection shots, the looking at his past self, the yearning, the relationship, the warmth, the clobbering time, like the payoff there. Oh, I wish that wasn't in the trailers. I stopped watching trailers after the second one, but the second one had that, like, say it, and like I was like, oh, well, that's a moment I feel like I would have loved in the theater. But Ben Grimm himself, exceptional, really worked for me, really enjoyed Eben's performance, really thought it was the thing. Just his eyes, the emotion that came out of there, the perfect tonality. I don't know, I really liked the thing here. And then finally, my biggest concern of the film would have been Joseph Quinn going into this. If you watch any of my stuff, you know that I think it's important that Johnny start out as a hothead. He has some of that here. I think also him being someone that is making wisecracks because of his insecurity, there is some of that here. I don't mind him being smart and a scientist, but I think the third act would have paid off better with Pedro and with Joseph Quinn, and even a little bit with Vanessa Kirby if their first parts of their story were different. If Johnny went from being a little more selfish, like he is in the comics, a little more impulsive, like he is in the comics, to someone that is willing to sacrifice himself, and then you have the Silver Surfer moment, that would have felt way bigger. If Johnny was someone that was sardonic and, I don't even need the womanizing, but I do need the guy that grows up. And I don't feel like he grows up because he's already such a good dude at the top. It's okay if he's smart, but the reason that's important is I grew up like a pretty impulsive bro, and I needed these characters to grow up. If we never let the bro-y, masculine energy of being a dumb teenager or 20-something into these films, we don't see the evolution of the arc of Steve Stifler in American Pie 1 to Steve Stifler in American Wedding. We don't see the maturity happen. And then people like me, I needed those role models growing up. I needed to see people grow out of those shitty phases and realize it's not okay to be that guy. I needed Human Torch to have a bit of that arc. And instead he went from like smart, lonely, wants a girlfriend guy to falls in love. That's a great dynamic for Silver Surfer. That worked for me. But then at the end, the arc doesn't really pay off because he's already been a good guy that would probably sacrifice himself. The sacrifice didn't feel like that because we didn't get to see Johnny Storm actually show his true nature. This Johnny Storm wouldn't be weird that he was friends with Peter Parker. Like, it would be like, that makes sense. I always loved the dynamic of like movie star Zac Efron in the early 2000s. Why would he hang out with nerdy Peter Parker? That dynamic was interesting. Instead, they're kind of similar. So I still think Joseph Quinn's an incredible actor. I just think that they were so afraid of making a, they were so afraid of making like a toxic male that they never let him grow out of being toxic. And instead, they would just cast someone that was able to play him warm but felt soft throughout. And that softness when he was willing to sacrifice himself felt not as earned because you're like, well, yeah, he would. What a nice guy. And to me, I would have liked a little more there. And that would have made the Vanessa Kirby moment a little more powerful because I loved her. That would have made Pedro's loss and mourning, I think, a little more powerful. I don't know. I just would have had their start be a little different to get to that third act. But so my concern for Joseph Quinn, I do think I still don't feel that as much as I want to. He's also my favorite member of the Fantastic Four, so it's the most personal. That's just my perspective. I still don't quite connect to him in the way I wanted to. His comedy worked better for me than I expected. His ability to banter with Ben worked better than I expected. Some of his Human Torch moments I did like more than I expected. So I'm gonna go like, better than I expected with Joseph Quinn, Human Torch, but still not what I wanted from the character. And that's gonna be one of the things that keep this from being a 5-star, brings it down to a 4. That, and I do feel the lack of some moments of cutting characters. I loved Shala Ball. I loved Galactus. I thought we had the right amount of them, but I would have liked a little bit like to see, the scenes in between all the kinetic and exciting scenes so we could connect to these characters more and also see the villain montage I felt like we cut away from. There were some pacing things that kept it from being, a 5-star film. So we're into part 3, my cons. My cons of the film, Joseph Quinn's Human Torch wasn't, again, the comic Human Torch that I see, but he did serve the film. Same with Pedro Pascal, but I could see them working in a totally different way like Thor does. I don't love Thor in Ragnarok. I know everybody loves it, or Love and Thunder, but I love Thor in the Avengers films. I like Thor more in Thor 1 than I do in even Ragnarok, but I like him most in Infinity War and Endgame. I think we have that potential with Pedro Pascal and Joseph Quinn in other movies that might be more the sensibilities I see because they're good enough actors to play the versatility. I'm not worried at all about Vanessa Kirby or Eben Moss-Bachrach ever because I feel like they were plug and play perfect. But that's just my flaw of the film, the Joseph Quinn element and the Pedro Pascal being a little too Joel, not quite enough Reed. and the elements of Johnny that did not ever feel hot-headed, which is the whole metaphor for the character and the growth of the character. Those things are big enough flaws for me. Knocks it down to the 4. Pacing wise, I love the feverish pace. I love that you dove into a comic, but I did feel at times the emotional payoff could have been better served if, 1, marketing didn't give away as much, but 2, if there were more times before you went from like first act giant set piece, second act giant set piece, third act giant set piece. Those moments felt like, okay, we haven't recovered. I like the sense of adventure, but also like, what was that over there? What's this over there? Like the time jumps for the kid being born felt a little jarring. Again, 10 minutes would have solved this. Not a big thing. This is a 4 out of 5 star film, fittingly. This is a A- for me. This is a very strong film. Other couple things, really struggled in the third act with the CGI baby. The CGI baby was throughout the film. The CGI baby made the visuals not as strong for me because the visuals on Galactus and Silver Surfer worked so well. When the baby looked fake, I was like, And it was so odd because when newborns are born, they look alien, right? Like just the color of a baby. Like babies, I've seen newborn babies. I'm 10 years old with my brother and sister. Like I've seen new babies. They always look uncanny valley-ish, and this baby being CGI added to that. And then and I know you've got to like, I can't even imagine how you film, with a newborn on a set like this, but when the baby's a plot element and there's like a weird glow around it and you can't tell if it's his powers manifesting or if it's the CGI and the uncanny valley of the face, I was distracted a fair amount. So the CGI baby is the only visual that didn't work for me, but that's a big enough visual because of the importance in the story. I was affected. The visuals working on the 828 universe, on Galactus again, Silver Surfer again, on The Thing, there are so many moments where you don't know what's a visual effect and what's practical. That is the biggest gift. Visual effects artists don't get enough love because you only notice when things don't work. You don't notice the hundreds of times they do work, the thousands of times. The visual effects in this, again, this is I think the best visual experience of a Marvel movie ever. But CGI baby, again, one of the things that knocks it down to a 4. I think that's it. Solid A-, an incredible time. I loved it. I give Superman a 4.5, and I'm worried people watching this are gonna be like, why is he comparing it to Superman? I just thought it was insane and joyous that we had a golden age and a silver age back to back, 2 weeks apart, that both represented hope, that both represented family, that both represented what it means to grow and make choices. Like they both had so much going on. They both represent international decisions being made about Americans with like a trolley problem. There's so much happening that I really love. So I'm sorry if you didn't like Superman, but you wanted to hear my review about this and you did like this. Whatever it is, I thought the parallel was interesting, but that Superman was like a 4.5. This is a 4, both amongst the highest of my superhero films, of my comic book movies. I think this falls at like 12 or 13 on my overall MCU movie ranking out of 36 films. That puts this in the top third. This is absolutely one of my favorite Marvel films. I think it's the most comic book Marvel film. I think it is so special. I think you should see it big and loud. I saw it in a regular theater. I'm going to see it in IMAX next. I hope you enjoyed this review. I tried to mix it up a little, make it like a 3-part conversation. It's probably long. I'm facing my phone. I don't know what the camera says. But yeah, this is a long review. Hopefully you're here. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of Fantastic Four First Steps. Did you have some of the same enjoyment moments? Did you love the same as I did? Do you have some of the same problems I did? Let's talk about the pros and the cons in the comments below. With respect to each other, let's talk kindly. Leave me a comment about Fantastic Four First Steps. Post-credit scenes! Almost forgot. I would have gotten so much guff. Talked comic writers, talked comic references, talked Easter eggs like 828. The post-credit scenes. The one that was the animated montage, loved. The Doctor Doom one, didn't love. I know it's going to be a hard sell of the comic accurate costume, but we've gotten to the point where you're buying those things. I just think the reveal of the mask and it felt very, obviously it's a new character, but the cloak and the mask having no adornments or tarnishments. It felt clean in a just bought way, not clean in a royalty way. And it's hard to explain why that vexed me. It was fine. It's a cool moment. But the touch in the face is an interesting choice. But having it in the same set as Thunderbolts was weird. Like it literally looks like where the Thunderbolts enter, like the same circular room but dressed differently. They put a stove in the middle. But we know the Russo brothers directed it. Maybe it was the same day. But I'm very curious how other people feel about the post-credit scene. It does tease, does get you excited, does get Doom. And now we know Doom is going to be comic accurate. Curious. So post-credit, obviously we wanted Doom in a Fantastic Four movie. We got the tastiest little taste. And then we got that little montage that gave us our shared universe, not shared universe, that gave us our starting universe of villains. And there's so many, like the Wizard, that was so exciting. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought of those post-credit scenes as well. Sorry, I forgot to mention them earlier. Comment down below. Like this video if you like this video. Subscribe if you're not already. I loved this movie. I had a grand old time with it. To compare, by the way, 4-star is like, this is right around Black Panther and Captain America Civil War for me. Like, those are like the 4.5s. This is like the top of the 4s. So this is right up there with some of the best. My favorites are like the original Iron Man, Infinity War. To me, that Iron Man, the first Iron Man, like those are my tops. No Way Home is in my top. Winter Soldier is my top. No Way Home, Winter Soldier kind of dance. So my top 5 would be like Winter Soldier, No Way Home, Iron Man, the first Avengers, Infinity War, like that stuff. So this, even approaching that, is high praise. I really love this film. What do you rank it? Where is it in your Marvel pantheon? I need to do like all of them, including the shows again, but in just movies, it's in the top third. So let me know in the comments below. All right, I'm just talking to talk now. Much love, guys. I'll see you soon. Hopefully you enjoyed this review.